welcome back to Adam Adamant Lives reviews. If you missed the earlier videos, they are quite old. I'd suggest taking a look at them, unless YouTube's fucked up again. They should have a playlist. Adam Adamant is a weird beast. It was Verity Lambert, Doctor Who's first producer's first job after leaving Who. It was supposed to be an adaptation of early 20th century literary hero Bulldog Drummond, but they lost the rights, and it's kind of the missing link between Austin Powers and Doctor Who. Adam is a British hero, a spy adventurer from 1902, who is frozen by his arch-enemy and wakes up in the swinging 60s. Meets up with a young woman who's familiar with his work and continues where he left off. He's also the main inspiration for the Pertwee Doctor Who, besides Pertwee himself. All fisticuffs, capes, avuncular, being unflappable while stopping earthbound threats, and with a slightly unclear relationship with the British government. It's a fantastic time capsule of a show and lasted for 2 series. Alas, half the episodes are missing, probably never to return. I can't remember if I said this in the previous videos or not, but I always felt that if new Adam Adamant came along, then I'd eventually do another episode or 2 to cover it. I have to admit, I assumed, more hoped, that I'd have to talk about a newly discovered episode, or maybe do a rant about the BBC fucking up a remake starring David Tennant. But nah, because Big Finish has done a remake, and the results are certainly mixed. I'm going to give you an overview to start off with and then go into each episode. There's 6 thus far. I'm not expecting any more, but Big Finish recently did a second Luther Arkwright release, 18 years after the original, so anything's possible. So if we do get more, then do expect another video. Now, unlike Big Finish's Doctor Who, Torchwood, Star Cops, or Tomorrow People stuff, this isn't a continuation, it's a straight remake. Much like their Space 1999 or their Prisoner stuff. And before you get your hopes up, none of the original cast turn up. Anyway, overview. I feel there are 3 obvious ways to handle Adam in an Adam Adamant remake. 1, basically do what they did in the original show. 2, ground it more, adapt stuff to make him a bit more realistic. Or 3, keep him as the charming, chivalric, nationalistic, 60s hitting serial killing cartoon we all know and love, but explain why he's the way he is. I prefer the third approach. It was part of the impetus behind my Adam Adamant Man of International Mystery video, where I argued that he's biracial and his mother was from a British Empire colony, probably India. Big Finish, though, decided on the second approach, and it really doesn't line up for me. For instance, Adam doesn't despise the modern day, but instead takes an interest in modern conveniences. He doesn't kill multiple people every episode, and he's kind of full of himself. OG Adam was too, but when he gave a speech to Louise, his lady love, about why they can't be together, he meant it.
You're the only one to whom I have ever given my heart. But alas, dear Louise, I'm afraid I just cannot ask you to be mine. You see, my love for you could be used as a weapon to destroy me by the enemies of England.
Well, Big Finish Adam uses that as a stock speech to random women he thinks are into him.
I cannot give you my heart. I am forever a target for the enemies of this glorious country.
Out of the way, you gawping idiots!
I beg your pardon? However, I must warn you, as much as it saddens me, I cannot give you my heart. I am forever a target for the enemies of this glorious...
Oh, do shut up. If you've been paying even the slightest attention, you might have already realised. You're not my type.
Oh.
Big Finish Adam is more like the parody of Adam from the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I suppose this is all indicative of one of the big differences. OG Adam was seemingly incapable of change or growth or even lying. While Big Finish's Adam is much more of a normal guy. A normal guy who's playing the part of a hero while OG Adam is the part. Big Finish Adam is someone doing the job of a knight and trying their best to live up to it. OG Adam is someone who decided to become a storybook knight, like a child's idea of a knight, and then did it. Hopefully by the end of the video you'll see what I mean. Anyway, you can even see the differences between them in the visuals. OG Adam is in full Victorian formal wear at almost all times. At first glance, Big Finish's is too, but look closer, and you can see that he's wearing a 60s style blazer with a piping. This Adam has changed. He's fitting into the 60s, which OG Adam would probably rather die than do. But this is actually a bit of a plot point, because they've chosen to add some doubt about whether Adam Adamant actually is who he says he is. He might just be a modern guy who thinks he's Adam Adamant. Though I find it very hard to believe that there weren't any pictures or paintings of Adamant. He disappeared in 1902 and was a nationally famous upper-class hero. There should have been collectible tea sets with pictures of him. Blake Ritson plays Adam, and vocally he does a good job.
Madam, please remain strong. I, for one, will not allow such vulgarity and violence to stand. Those villains will be routed. You have my word. Just as soon as I manage to escape the belly of the beast.
Though I am much less impressed with the visual. That's not a slight in Ritson, though. Adam's a really hard role to cast, and I've literally spent years trying to work out who could play him in a TV remake. And the closest thing I've managed is Michael Fassbender, if he was biracial and white passing, with the voice of a non-comedy Matt Berry. White passing, because if I got my way with a remake, the reveal of his background, that his mother was from the Empire, probably Indian, it would be a twist partway through. Kinda like Fitzjames in The Terror and his probably not historically accurate Portuguese ancestry. Anyway, the original show had trouble casting Adam too. Gerald Harper wore slightly dark makeup, fake eyebrows and a wig. Turns out that a Victorian upper-class mix of James Bond and the Punisher, who's completely pure in his intents, and a paladin for the UK, and good, is kind of hard to depict in real life. Anyway, like I said earlier, the remake is also set in the 60s, which kind of confuses me. I mean, yeah, the original show is very 60s, very hip, very pop art, but if you're remaking it, then why not set it in the modern day and do the same kind of stylistic thing, but about now instead? Especially if, as they explain in the making of documentary, they were always planning on modernising the 60s a bit.
And Georgina's character has changed a bit because we don't live in the 1960s anymore, and the level of patronising of women, sexism really, and, you know, lashings of misogyny thrown in for good measure, those were all just baseline assumptions of all entertainment.
And that is more than fair modernisation. I just don't see why they were so invested in keeping the rest of it. Like, I could see the value in a film or a TV Adam Adamant remake keeping the 60s settings, it'd help it look unique, especially if they lent into it even more stylistically. But this is audio. They're already making it more modern, but that might have been a bridge too far for the audience. Anyway, they've also changed up Miss Jones. She's not just an Adam Adamant fan who gloms onto him and forces her way into his adventures, somehow supporting herself on whatever she makes from random jobs she takes as part of that week's episode. In this version, she's a writer, working on a novel set in the late Victorian period. That's why she knows who Adamant is. And if anyone's stalking the other, it's Adamant stalking her, kinda. He buys the penthouse in her building to live near her.
The penthouse in my building? I've ended up with a stalker. A mad stalker. With all the money.
I hope you don't mind. I discovered it was empty and, well, in truth, you're the only person I know in this world, so I was rather hoping you might help me acclimatize a little.
Which all makes sense. She is his only friend in the future and is kind of his guide. But all this means that we lose Adamant's house from the original show, recreated perfectly on top of a multi-story car park, complete with a secret door.
My house is above. I believe the modern term is a penthouse.
On top of a car park?
Yes, it's a very efficient defense against intrusion.
Easily one of the more surreal parts of a kind of weird show. They chose to do that with Adam's house because it was the 60s, and it is very hard to believe now, but in the mid-60s UK, multi-stories were briefly considered a symbol of progress in the bright future. The post-war reconstruction had concluded, people had cars, people were travelling, the country had recovered, and things were bright. You can really see this in the opening episode of Captain Scarlet, where there's an action scene at the London Car View. A colossal car park in the sky that serves no practical purpose but to be there and look kind of futuristic. Anyway, Miss Jones is also gay in this version.
If you've been paying even the slightest attention, you might have already realised. You're not my type.
Oh. Just as well. I am a terrible man.
That is a very good change. It makes a lot of sense, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to retcon this into my headcanon about the original show at some point.
It got the lot. From bingo to bosom.
Yes, I think we can do without the more graphic comparisons, Miss Jones.
What's wrong with bosom?
She's played by Millie Thomas, who's done some Big Finish Who work, but nothing I've covered yet. Sims, Adam's theatrical butler, is played by Guy Adams, who's also the writer. He's written a lot of Big Finish and done some acting, but this is his biggest role thus far. He's also the character at least changed in the remake, as in almost not at all. He's a former actor who had a long career and has picked up whatever skills Adam and Miss Jones need in the story.
Now, Mr. Sims, was it?
William E. Sims, at your service.
I don't suppose you know how to pick a lock.
I once played Houdini in Weekly Rep. What's important is that the management refused to pay the cast that month, claiming penury. I chanced a late-night visit to the office, discussed matters at length with the company cash box. I need something long and thin to work with.
The main difference between this Sims and the original is there's a lot less antagonism between him and Miss Jones in the remake.
Oh, it doesn't matter. Just finish your toast and hop it.
I beg your pardon, Sims. Pop it?
I thought the vernacular would be more appropriate, miss. More in keeping with the strata of society to which you're accustomed.
I headcanon Sims in the original show as gay and assume that he saw as a bit of a rival for Adamant's affections. Maybe Guy Adams had a similar idea, and her being gay means that she's less of a threat to him. Oh, they've also cut Sims' limericks. But that kind of makes sense. They were specially written by Dick Vosper, a Grammy Award-nominated lyricist. And Guy Adams is a good writer, but there's no way in hell he's going to challenge Dick Vosper when it comes to writing limericks.
Urgent business. Something for the government?
Very nosy was Rosie from Crewe. Asking questions was all she could do. She was found one day strangled and horribly mangled. I love happy endings, don't you?
All right, I don't care if you tell me or not.
Anyway, on to the episodes themselves. There's 6 so far, 2 volumes of 3. Volume 1 is A Vintage Year for Scoundrels, named after the first episode of the TV show. The first audio story, which is a remake of A Vintage Year for Scoundrels, is called What Is This Place? Kind of a downgrade from the original title, I have to say. This follows many of the same beats as the TV pilot. Adam finds himself in the 60s, there's flashbacks to 1902. Adam is injured and hospitalised, and an older gangster woman has to be dealt with. But a lot has changed too. Guy Adams explained that he feels a remake is like a cover version.
I think when you're doing something like this, obviously you're recasting, obviously it's a new production. You know, you're making a cover version, and there's really nothing quite so dull as cover versions that sound identical to the original. So, you know, what sort of spin can you put on it?
And he's right. This might sound kind of weird coming from me, who spent literally decades being annoyed about the changes made to Doctor Who, but this is a remake. It's an alternate reality. If this was a continuation of the original show with new actors and they made these random changes, then I'd be annoyed. Anyway, one of the big changes is that Adam spends much of the episode unconscious, battling his own demons in his mind, and getting one hell of a badass boast in there.
With fist, knife, and gun, they will stop at nothing to remove me as this country's defender. Because I am the last stand. I am the one who will not give up, who will not let the forces of chaos and violence and evil and immorality ride roughshod over the good people of this land. I will fight, yes, and I will win. Because I am the brick wall beyond which you will not pass. I am the last defense. I am Britannia. With bloodied fist and unbowed head, I am righteousness. I am the law. And I am Adam Adamant. And I won't die. I will not die!
That is some ancient Rylanor to Fulgrim shit. The face, Adamant's arch-enemy, also haunts Adam in his mind, even after he wakes up. And in one genuinely clever idea, he's played by Blake Ritson, and underneath the mask, he looks just like Adamant.
A gentleman responds to his company, sir. And a gentleman most certainly doesn't wear a mask. That rather depends on what may lie beneath it. You may not like what I could reveal. Sir, it takes more than cheap flummery to unsettle me. You may wear my face and use my voice, but you are not me.
Ritson even switches between playing them in real time when recording, covering his mouth with his hands to make it sound like he's wearing a mask. Anyway, all this plays into the question marks about whether Adamant actually is from the past or is mad. And it spectacularly remixes one of the big recurring bits from the show that's been cut from the audio version. Adam constantly getting knocked out and having the same dreams of Louise in the face. It's like they took this recurring, kinda tiresome dream sequence and turned into a one-episode subplot. Excellent stuff. The main villain of the story is the same, Margot Kane, the upper middle-aged woman gangster, though her attention's been switched from Miss Jones to the doctor who's treating Adamant.
Nah, voice like an angel. Handsome devil too. Just like this fella. If you like that sort of thing, of course. And you don't, do you, ducky?
I can't pay you. I just can't.
Hey.
Good advice, chum. Good advice. Because you don't really want people knowing, do you, ducky?
She and her son are blackmailing her for being gay. Not illegal at the time, but she would be fired for it. I was really struck by just how well Izzy Van Randwyck managed to recreate Frida Jackson's performance as Kane.
When I have to get up this early in the morning, it upsets my nerves. I'm inclined to forget my manners, see? However, you remember yours, and we shall be quite all right.
I've got it.
What do you want? A round of bleeding applause? Get in there and get shopping.
You ain't coming in with me?
Of course I'm not. Risk getting nabbed filling my pockets with hooky pharmaceuticals. You must think I'm stupid.
Putting them side by side, you can hear the difference. But when I first listened to this, it had been about 10 years since I watched A Vintage Year for Scoundrels, and for a couple of seconds I really wondered if they'd reused her original audio. It's an excellent impersonation. The plot is simple. Adam appears, is run over by a car, he's found by Miss Jones, who gets him to the hospital that a doctor friend of hers works at. Kane blackmails the doctor, Adam defeats his internal demons, wakes up and defeats Kane. A masterclass in adapting a story to another medium. There's only a couple of issues, like, one, in the TV version, Miss Jones and Adam spend most of their time together. It sets up their eventual friendship. Or whatever it is that they have, it's only kind of a friendship. In this one, Adam comes to the aid of the doctor who saved his life, so there's no particular reason for him to connect with Miss Jones. Honestly, she should have been dating the doctor. And two, Adam is really unmurder happy. In the TV show's first episode, he killed 5 people. In this, he kills no one. And one of the defining moments of the TV show, for me, is when he faced Kane on the rooftop. How she ordered him to drop his sword or she'd kill Miss Jones.
Drop the sword!
And rather than do the usual heroic thing and drop his sword, Adam said this.
Then I swear to you, madam, you will follow her.
And he meant it. And then he killed her. An old lady. It instantly showed that Adam's not to be fucked with. That his morality is not the same as everyone else's. That he's not like everyone else, or a normal TV hero. Because he's not. This guy laughs an emotionless, rictus laugh when he fights someone. Before murdering the fuck out of them for daring to face him.
It was a better death than he deserved, but there wasn't much time.
But Audio Adam lets Kane go, and then he blackmails her. Something which OG Adam would never do.
You threaten my friends, I break yours. Send one, send many, try to kill me if you must. But I am stronger than you will ever know, and I will ruin you.
It really shows the difference between the TV show and the audio and the different versions of the character. TV Adam is a very honest psychopath who cuts a bloody swathe through each episode, while Audio Adam will blackmail and be underhanded to win. But there is a through line. They will both break the law. Anyway, Guy Adams explained that he wanted Kane to be kept alive because she was a fantastic villain, and it was just a shame to waste her. Waste her.
The first episode of the TV series has Margot, and she's wonderful. And I felt they got rid of her too quickly. I thought it was just the most wonderful idea, so I was determined that we should keep Margot.
And I do agree with them. Margot Kane is one of the great villains of mid-60s British TV. I just wish he'd changed things a little bit more so Adam's moment on the rooftop still happened. Maybe he faced someone else. Maybe she somehow survived the fall. Anyway, that's What Is This Place? It ends with Adam living atop Miss Jones's building, already adjusting to the 60s and ready for adventures ahead. And like I said earlier, this was an excellent adaptation. My issues with it aren't a comment on the quality, but a difference in how I see the character. Episode 2, Death Has 1,000 Faces, adapts the episode of the same name. A crime puts Adam and Miss Jones on the road to Blackpool, where they meet a lunatic who plans on blowing up half the city, and they meet a new ally. All this is unchanged from the original story, but a lot of the fine details are different. Where the original got them involved in the plot via some criminal plans found in rock.
Hey, brilliant! A simple device, crudely executed.
This one is a body turning up, and the victim having drowned in liquid sugar.
Tell me more about this confection of a cadaver. I shall be mother.
There's very little else. The body was found by the railway tracks near Gately, just south of Manchester. The deceased was Clive Starkey, a civil servant. Oh, sounds boring. Who bumps off a civil servant, then dips them in sugar?
We should certainly find out, don't you think?
In the original, the villains run a Chamber of Horrors wax museum, and in the remake, they run an elaborate ghost train. Don't get me wrong, the changes are fine, I just think the last one got them the wrong way around. A ghost train gives slightly better visuals for a TV story, and waxwork gives you more scope for descriptions in the audio, as people discuss the various villains on display. This is one of the strongest of the audio stories. If anything, it's an improvement on the TV version. The sugar-covered corpse is a much better reason for Miss Jones and Adamant to get involved, though both are kind of silly. And the villain is a lovely shade of deranged.
Let's just bash his head in.
Oh, so crude. Where's the fun in that?
Not supposed to be fun, is it? Just business.
Speak for yourself. Some of us take pleasure in our work.
As long as I don't have to dump him in the vats again, that made a right mess of my car boots.
Made the rock taste even sweeter, though, didn't it?
You haven't been eating it?
Of course. I wouldn't waste it on the stupid punters. Now, let's get him chained up.
She's played by Daisy Ashford, real-life daughter of Caroline John, who played 70s companion Liz Shaw in Doctor Who. She's taken over the role of Liz on Big Finish, and is a delight as the evil Miss Stoker. This brings in Guy Adams as Sims, and frankly, he's the best match for the original character. The dialogue is perfect, his voice is wonderful, and he is the guy's sardonic wit down.
Come on, then. Or are you scared?
By that, I'll have you know I once performed in twice nightly pantomime, standing in front of hundreds of children, with nothing but a false hook and the tutelage of Dame Theatre to protect you. That's real fear. Nothing else gets close.
Guy Adams is the show's secret acting MVP, and he really gets Sims.
It was a theatrical performance. It was, he was clearly an ex-theatrical, but you give that world to me when I'm behind my keyboard, and I'm afraid it becomes even more port-soaked. If I can create a character that's basically carved out of Stilton and popped in a velvet jacket, then I'm never happier than that.
This one really makes plain one of the big changes to Adam's character. His willingness to adapt to the 60s. If you've seen the original show, or my reviews, try to imagine TV Adam in this scene.
I cannot resist the latest in scientific development.
You do love a gadget. I was marvelling at your coffee machine this morning. I couldn't work it, of course, but I enjoyed the fact that it was there.
I saw an identical model in use in Soho. Proof that, with the right arcane methods, it can be convinced to give up a beverage or two. But yes, it seems to be feeling obstinate at the moment.
TV Adam was so old-fashioned that he barely tolerated the gramophone, and once threw out powdered soup because he didn't realise it was food. And powdered soup was invented 5 years before he was frozen.
Dehydrated, sir. They do it with everything nowadays. Potatoes, milk, eggs. Good Lord, that's absolutely amazing. Sir?
Not the grass, Sims.
Oh, no, sir. That's quite solid.
Thank heavens for that.
Anyway, one scene I really liked was Adam getting a tour of the evil Miss Stoker's ghost train. It seemed to be setting up for a classic scene of Adam getting taken in by an obviously evil woman and being knocked unconscious.
So clever. But oh, so vulnerable.
But Adam's already figured her out.
I particularly like this colour of green.
It's slightly luminescent.
And familiar. The last time I saw it was on the palms of a dead man. Care to comment?
Comment enough?
Oh, more than enough. I do so hate guns.
I love them.
Not sure if this counts as an in-joke or a reference for TV fans, but I'll take it. I did notice a minor issue, but it's something across the board rather than just here. The adaptation made the deliberate choice to cut out the sexism, which is good, but at the same time it meant cutting some of the good-natured sparring between Adam and Miss Jones. Adam, the unreconstructed, literal Victorian, and Miss Jones, the feminist. It sometimes leaves the writing a little bland at times compared to the original. For instance, we get nothing like this in the remake.
Oh, that! You're not the first person to spend a night on that sofa.
Yes, but not surely men.
Of course men, why ever not?
I see. You must forgive me, I hadn't realised. You're so young. What? No, please, say no more. I'm sure you've been driven to it. And I shall make every effort to find you a menial post where a reference from me can outweigh the most scarlet past.
Wait a minute, are you saying?
Good evening, sir. I'm your fluffy for tonight.
Mr.
Shh! You're not supposed to know me.
There are times when I wish I didn't, Miss Jones. I distinctly told you not to set foot in this vice-ridden lair.
But I can help. And it was a breeze getting the job. You see, they're desperate for girls with good legs.
Have you no shame?
Who's ashamed? A solid mile of entertainment. They've got the lot. From bingo to bosom.
Yes, I think we can do without the more graphic comparisons, Miss Jones.
What's wrong with bosom?
And I can totally see where Guy Adams got the idea to make her gay. One of the main guest actors is Glenn McCready, who plays Mrs. Stoker's husband, and a couple other small parts, and all of them sound like varying degrees of Leslie Phillips. Probably most famous to my audience for playing the Sorting Hat in Harry Potter.
Gryffindor! I mean, dog food isn't free, you know. If I don't earn a few quid by killing people on the page, then you're going to go hungry. Thinks he's so clever. Wants to keep an eye on who's sneaking up on him.
I am rather distracting, darling.
Sure are.
Are you finished?
All done? I was just double-checking when I hear you two coming.
The man is only doing his job.
Nobody contacted us to say you were coming. We're not supposed to let any Tom, Dick, or, well, Harriet in, you know.
Oh, of course not.
When I first heard him, I actually wondered if it was Phillips. He was still alive when they recorded this, and he had worked for Big Finish before, but nope. All the parts he's playing just sound like him. But weirdly, not in real life. Here's his actual voice.
I'm Glenn McCready, and I play Roddy Stoker, and Jackson Poe, and a morgue attendant, and a carnival barker, and a night watchman.
I'm imagining a Leslie Phillips scale of 1 to 10 on the wall of the studio, and the director points at a number for each character. Anyway, this is a lot of fun. It gets the right balance between adventure, wit, and the macabre. And it's the gold standard for taking a pretty good TV story and making a fantastic audio. Now, spoilers, but episode 3 is called Georgina Jones Dies. This is the first story not based in a TV episode, and the concept is pretty simple. Miss Jones is seemingly murdered by Adam, and Adam and Sims deal with the fallout. Adam's arrested, and even Sims isn't sure of his innocence. It's a more serious episode that takes the concept seriously. Unfortunately, it's the sort of story that relies on a long history between the characters. A series finale ending with Adam seemingly killing Miss Jones as a cliffhanger would be fantastic. At the start of episode 3, it's terribly misplaced. I mean, the trio only got together at the end of the last episode, and now they're split apart again. And the story even kind of understands this. There's a few brief mentions to Unseen Adventures, that the trio have been together for months at least.
Oh well, nothing else for it.
Adam, no!
Halt! In the name of Adamant!
I would follow him, and of course I would. Though I fear this jacket has extreme emotional significance to me.
And it didn't have to be this way. They could have been a little less slavish to the original and introduced Sims in episode 1. Then they could have a whole episode of the show's status quo before blowing it up. Or, even better, they could have adapted one of the many missing episodes of this show instead of doing this plot. One of them's about a London tube train that arrives into a station and everyone on board's a skeleton. I have no idea what else happens. I'm just sad that the story no longer exists. Maybe I'm alone in this, but when I listen to a remake of Adam Adamant, I want Adam Adamant. And that includes imaginative plots, a tone that veers wildly between violent and goofy, and the three main characters interacting, often sparring with each other.
Super! Now you'll be able to teach me the soft shoe shuffle.
I'm afraid you'll be far too busy for that, my dear, keeping callers to an absolute minimum.
Including Miss Jones, sir.
Especially Miss Jones. Thank you, Sims.
But you can't go without me. Stop him! He might get in with the wrong sort of women.
Highly unlikely, miss.
Colonel Willem de Vere Adamant. Sir, do you?
Sims, you can't be serious.
Of course I can't, but I am.
My dear Miss Jones, would you kindly control yourself and explain exactly what you're doing here?
I thought Sims meant you really were a colonel. Can I come?
Come where?
A fancy dress ball. You'll win easy. All you need is a whip and a couple of lions.
The whip is a very good idea, sir.
I take your point, Sims.
This story often feels like something else entirely. Something else entirely that goes weirdly poetic at times.
He picks her up and just... he throws her. The window only cracks the first time, but the second... the air's full of glass. Looks like an advert for something expensive, all shiny light, diamonds everywhere, and she goes straight out, arms crossed, looking so relaxed. The wind catches her hair, whips up around her head like a candle flame. She didn't make no noise. Unconscious, I expect. Oh, I hope. Straight down she goes.
Now, don't get me wrong, this isn't a bad story. I'm just confused to why it's here. Episodes 1 and 2 are essentially a two-part pilot, then they blow up the status quo and change the tone for episode 3. What makes it a little worse is the sorta, kinda supposed to be a surprise villain is clearly a villain, and he sounds like Margot Kane's son.
He's in the lounge. Go easy on him, though. I'm not entirely sure he can help it.
Go easy on him, can't promise that. There, just a taster of what you deserve. Lover Kosh, policeman's friend, pops in the pocket and always gets your point across.
Gets protective of his old mum, doesn't he? Couldn't bear the thought of your horrible, dirty little hands all over me. You wish.
Don't say bad things. Don't say bad things, or I'll make you cry.
He's not Margot Kane's son, though. He just sounds like him. He's not even played by the same actor. I looked it up. It's just kind of weird. And then Margot Kane gets involved.
Nah, naughty boy. Put my nice, useful copper down, or I'll pop a bullet in your head. It's not as neat. It's not as much fun, but I'll do whatever it takes. You're not getting out of here alive.
Madam?
Oh, the annoying actor.
You're not the only one with a firearm.
Oh, fun fact, the pilot of the TV series also featured Margot Kane attempting to murder Miss Jones and frame Adamant for it.
Fiend, you're not going to kill her in cold blood.
Oh, no. No, nothing like that, of course not. We're not going to kill her. You will. At least that's what the cops are going to think.
So even though I'm not fond of this episode, it is kind of nifty that got spun off into its own storyline. Anyway, naturally, Miss Jones is not actually dead. She's been imprisoned by Adam's archenemy, the Face, now in the 1960s as well, making this kinda, sorta, slightly a remake of Black Echo. A bit. The TV story that brought the Face into the 1960s, with literally everything else changed, including the fact that in this episode it's not actually the Face. It's just some guy saying he's the Face. Oh, and on the subject, the Face, he's one of the bits where the remake improves on the original. In the TV show, he's a guy in a gimp mask who sounds like this.
At last I've come face to face with you.
A privilege granted to no other man, and granted to you too late.
Here he's a guy in some sort of a mask, which apparently looks like this, and sounds like this when he's in Adam's head.
Because it occurs to me, yes, perhaps there are many legitimate reasons for your imagining me. Your lifestyle is hardly sedentary. You could still be recovering from significant head wounds, psychologically the trauma of waking up decades from your home, and with no understanding of how or why. Yes, I can see how that might explain me.
Or like this when he's menacing Miss Jones.
They're currently in prison cells, charged with your murder, would you believe?
And who might you be? Take the mask off, for goodness sake. It'll take more than that to scare me.
Oh, Miss Jones, you don't scare easily, I know. Look at everything you've been through. As for who I am, well, you wouldn't know my real name, but you can call me The Face.
And both are an improvement. Oh, fun fact. This story sets us firmly in the Doctor Who universe. Thanks to a clip from the 1960s' greatest fictional band, John Smith and the Common Men.
Good morning, London. John Smith and the Common Men there with their new cut, 4 past midnight. Time for the news.
You see, Susan was a fan all the way back in the Hartnell era.
And they're fabulous. Who? It's John Smith and the Common Men. They've gone from 19 to 2.
They even got their own Big Finish story with 5. So anyway, out of the initial volume, the third is probably the weakest. Not bad, just completely out of place. And the second is the best. It actually improved in the source material. Anyway, on to Volume 2, Face Off. It's another 3 stories, starting with a slight case of reincarnation, and you won't believe this, but I seem to have missed the slight case of reincarnation in the plot. Possibly got mentioned offhand among the stuff I'm going to complain about. This one continues the Miss Jones is dead, haha, not really arc. It's months later and Adam's become a guilt-ridden recluse, basically agoraphobic.
I'm reading a review of Sergio Leone's new moving picture, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. It's his follow-up to the Dollars films.
Clint Eastwood, a cigarette stain covered in iron filings. A few showers more. That would do everyone involved the world of good. Are you going to continue being annoying?
I don't concern myself with crime in the city. You know that.
Sim's taken upon himself to enlist an old friend, Lena, and continue the crime fighting.
Yes, leaving the rest of us to stick our necks out instead. Thank you for that.
I made no request that you should take my place. Indeed, I would rather you didn't.
As with the 2 gentlemen so determined to rob the City and Colonial Bank this morning, I'm sure.
And Miss Jones has been brainwashed with a face into believing that Adam is a violent escaped mental patient called Pat.
Every word you utter is preposterous.
And yet true. This is the Reno Asylum for the criminally delusional, and thanks to this piece of paper, you are once again our guest. I imagine you will be for the rest of your life. Gentlemen?
Unhand me, sirs. Georgina!
You made a fool of me, Hamilton.
That's not my name. I'm Adam Adamant. Are you sure? Adam Adamant. I'm Adam Adamant!
If you are,
Then I must be your mortal enemy. I must be the Face. No, Georgina! Georgina!
Liar. He's a liar. He always was.
Georgina!
Do you remember when this was a show about a charming murder machine who foiled ludicrous crimes? Really starting to miss that now. This really triples down on what I didn't like in the first release. The lack of Adam Adamant stuff in this Adam Adamant. At this point, it's less of an adaptation and more of an original work. Not a bad original work by any means, but with Adam Adamant names attached. But as ever, it is not all bad. The performances are excellent. This one even has Dan Starkey, aka Strax, trying for a nice couple of cameos. As an evil highwayman turned bank robber. You know, the sort of thing that'd usually be the plot for an episode of Adam Adamant.
Get out of our way, or the girl gets it.
Oh dear, these 2 have been reading American pulp literature. Every page a sun-baked slice of chewy beef doused in dialogue of vinegar.
You talk too much.
Once I was paid to do so, now you get it for free. Think of it as an act of kindness. And a distraction.
And a friendly cab driver who helps Adam out.
But I simply must commandeer your car. It is a matter of life and death.
Undercover policemen, are we? Pyjama division?
Yes, there wasn't time to change.
Oh, well, you can't stand there wafting all over the place. You'll cause a mischief. Get in and we'll see what we can do.
You're terribly kind.
People who only know him from his New Who stuff might not realise just how versatile his voice is. New Who's missed a trick by not having him play a human and a Sontaran in the same story, just to see if anyone notices. Episode 2 is Face It, and it is spectacular. Just spectacular. One of the most impressive releases Big Finish has ever done. From the concept to the performances to the amazing sound design, it is dizzying. It is memorable. It keeps you guessing, and it's not Adam Adamant. I'll tell you what it is, though. The Prisoner. In particular, Once Upon a Time, the second last episode. The one where number 2 has number 6 drugged in order to strip his personality away and rebuild him from the childhood up. Only for number 6 to turn the tables on him and win instead.
Die!
In this story, Adam is under the machinations of the Face. Not the Face that's been in his mind ever since he arrived in the 60s, but the one who kidnapped and brainwashed Miss Jones. And now he's doing the same thing to Adamant, trying to convince him that he's Pat Hamilton, a man who murdered his wife and was sent to a hospital for the criminally insane. This is a two-hander. There's only 2 actors, but between them they play about 10 characters. Blake Ritson plays Adamant, his version of the Face, and the newly created Pat Hamilton personality.
So easy to get lost in there.
Pat! There you are! Finally thinking for yourself, are you?
Buried me so deep. I'd actually forgotten who I was.
Idiotic. There's no such person as Pat Hamilton. He doesn't exist. He is the fiction. Not me. Him.
Well, Nicholas Asprey plays the modern-day Face, a disgraced psychiatrist out to make friends and influence people.
A dreamer. A fantasist, determined to be someone bigger than you are. I mean, we all dream big, that's what dreams are for, but you, so uncomfortable in your own skin, you have to pull on someone else's.
Who also plays a number of roles in the psychodrama. He pretends to be Hamilton's father, teacher, fiancé, father-in-law, and more.
Say it.
Sir?
Say it!
I love learning, sir.
Then, my boy, let me fill you with love. What are we learning?
To mind our betters?
That's right, boy, because you're nothing. Understand that? You're just an insect. An afterthought. You will never, ever amount to anything. You should try it, Hamilton. It'd make a man of you.
That's not how I would choose to define being a man.
No? Well, tell that to Forbes minor oozing across the headmaster's parking space like an upturned bowl of eaten mess. That's a position of some importance.
Absolutely.
We don't employ just anyone.
Of course not.
So tell me, why should we hire you?
Well, I'm the ideal man for the job.
Why, lad? You know who you are. You're Mr. Hamilton. I believe you want to marry my daughter.
I'm sorry.
You better not be. She's got a heart set on it. You planning on breaking her heart, Mr. Hamilton? Or are you a menace, Mr. Hamilton? Should I be wary of you? Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today, like it or not, to join this couple in holy matrimony.
Marriage?
Of course, darling. Isn't that what you always wanted? Of course it is. Who are you talking to? Me? Yourself? Your demons, let me help you. I am your doctor, your father, your mother, your creator.
The story of how Asprey got the role is actually pretty funny. They originally planned on recording both volumes almost on top of each other, so they could introduce this version of the Face in Volume 1, with the reveal that Miss Jones was still alive.
As for who I am, well, you wouldn't know my real name, but you can call me the Face.
But the writing in Volume 2 was delayed, and they needed a face for that scene, and they didn't want to use a stand-in and recast, so Nicholas Briggs looked through who was in the studio that day, spotted Nick Asprey working on a Tom Baker Doctor Who release, and gave him the role on the spot. No audition required. Thankfully, he is very good.
Give in to the questions, give in to the doubts, give in to the fears, give in to the up, give in to the down, give in to the yes, give in to the no, give in to the bad thoughts, give in to the pain, give in to the screams, give in, give in, give in.
I'm kind of wrestling with myself about how much spoilers to give out about this one, how many clips to play, because if you're going to listen to it, you should probably go in as cleanly as possible. But I will do this. Here is some of the sound design. Just listen to the spectacular work.
It's more than I can take. The sound of it. She died, I think.
Yes, killed.
Yes.
Chop, chop, chop. Killed by you.
No!
Of course. Can you see it yet? Like a cloud moving across the face of your dead mother. Biblical. The great darkness. The beast.
Pulling me apart!
More biblical business. Was Eve not born from one of Adam's ribs? What are you hatching from your flesh, Pat? Ugly-looking brute.
I am the face. I'm the thing you can only dream of being. It's not real! None of this is real!
And you shoved her head under the water, your hands around her throat, and you raged, and you screamed, and your hands tightened, and your knuckles whitened, and your soul lightened.
Jesus.
Anyway, one last thing. The Face begins his treatment of Adam by playing some music.
By the time I finished, you won't believe a word of it.
And it occurred to me that the theme music to the remake is a good example of the differences between it and the original show. It's the same words, the same tune, it is technically great. It's just missing stuff that I love from the original and replaced it with stuff that I'm not into, making it an inferior cover version.
You know, you're making a cover version, and there's really nothing quite so dull as cover versions that sound identical to the original. So, you know, what sort of spin can you put on it?
Anyway, this is a great episode. I'm not a fan of the angle the show is taking, but this episode alone might make it worthwhile. It is that good. It's just really in the wrong show. Episode 3 of Volume 2, the 6th episode overall, and the last thus far, is The Important Questions, and it decides to take the Adam Adamantless approach to Adam Adamant to the next level by removing Adam Adamant entirely from much of it. This one follows Miss Jones and is kind of a noir thing, complete with her internal monologue.
I've dreamed of this ever since I was a child. Metal doors, metal walkways, strip lights for sun. Imagine it. Imagine being locked away somewhere like that for years. Years and years and years.
And discussion of that novel that she was trying to write. Basically, she's forced to work for Margot Kane alongside Sim's friend Lena and do a job. The Face in the previous episode was also working for Margot Kane. The whole plot was revenge for the pilot and her arrest, and Georgina Jones dies. The story keeps you guessing about when exactly it's set because, like I said, there is no Adam. But Miss Jones is no longer brainwashed. But it all makes sense in the end. And once the gang comes back together again, which they do shortly before the end credits, it even feels like an episode of Adam Adamant again.
Shall we?
Oh, I think so. Absolutely.
The night is still young.
I'll kill you! I'll kill every last one of you!
Billy boy.
Far be it from me to be vulgar to Jim, but one more word out of either of you, and I'll slip some cyanide into your drinks.
Who's been drinking cyanide?
Nobody just yet, but play the piano a little more. See if one of us is forced to consider it.
You're in a good mood.
Annoying, isn't it?
And what are the important questions of the title? Well, it's not whether Adam is actually Adam Adamant, but whether that's important.
I could be Adam Adamant, or just someone who thinks he is. How am I ever supposed to know, to really know which?
The important question is, does it matter?
And while the story would say no, I would say yes, of course it's important. It's a show about Adam Adamant. If he's not Adam Adamant, it's a shaggy dog story. I am here to listen to the adventures of Adam Adamant, not some random guy. But perhaps Adam Adamant was the friends we made along the way, Listening to the making of episode 6, I actually thought of an all-new issue I have with the remake. One that I've not already driven into the ground. Adam doesn't save Miss Jones.
But in the original series, Georgina was on a week-by-week basis, tied up to things, and needed constant rescuing. And I thought, I'm not going there. Georgina will not be portrayed as a victim in need of saving.
Don't get me wrong, it is mostly a good change. Her getting captured in the original show should be part of an official drinking game, alongside Adam getting knocked out. But at the same time, removing it so completely leaves Adam feeling a little surplus to requirements. Plus, well done, you actually made the remake less realistic than the original. I mean, he's a spy, adventurer, soldier with decades of experience under his belt. And she's not. Him saving her isn't always sexism, sometimes it's logical. But like I said, it's mostly a good change. I just feel they overcorrected slightly. Anyway, while I kind of found these two releases a bit maddening, I really hope they make more because the actors play the parts really well. For all my disagreements with Guy Adams about his choices and plots and characterization and stuff, I think he can write actual Adam Adamant stories well. I just wish he'd do it. Honestly, it kind of reminded me of Hollywood's obsession with doing traditional heroes like Robin Hood or King Arthur, but never in the traditional way. They always think of some gimmick to differentiate it from the traditional version. But since no one's done a traditional version in fucking decades, they're just counterpoints to non-existent media. And episode 3 to 6 feel like that. Interesting stories that counterpoint the usual Adam Adamant adventures, which unfortunately were not made. These are stories that should be built up to be earned by the audience and the writer. But maybe Adams had this arc that he really wanted to tell and wasn't sure he'd get enough releases to build up to it organically, so he threw it out there early. And if so, I can understand that. I just wish things were a bit different. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed my long-awaited return to Adam Adamant. I hope it happens again, preferably with a rediscovered episode. Like, subscribe, etc. And if you want to support this show more directly, please check out the Patreon.